So, beginning on, excuse me, page 4 of your textbook, in the section Reading Imaginative Literature. I think it was this class, it might have been my first class on Monday, and I'll warn you right now, this is going to be a problem for your class, is I teach the exact same class right before this, and so I come in here and I'm thinking, wait, did I already talk about that? Because I did, but just not with you. One of the classes, or maybe both of them, I finished, with talking about what is literature, and I, held this up and said, this is literature, it's not very good, but blah, blah, blah. Notice the section in the book is reading imaginative literature. Why? Because anything written can be considered literature. So we're obviously not reading just anything written. So what's meant by imaginative literature? What's imaginative involve? What word does that come from?
Imagination.
Imagination, which involves?
Fiction.
Fiction. Or, to be a little more literal, fantasy, or pretend. Unreal things, right? Hobbits are unreal. Harry Potter is unreal. That is, he's not a living, breathing character. Jedi Knights are unreal, even though there are societies of Jedi Knights and there are people who play Quidditch and the whole 9 yards. All that stuff's unreal. It's imaginary. It's made up. At first, it's made up where? Yeah, in somebody's head. J.R.R. Tolkien created the entire world of Middle-earth initially all up here. Okay? J.K. Rowling created all the Harry Potter stuff initially right up here. Each one of these novels initially had an idea that they had to flesh out on paper. Okay? Flesh out in English form, modern English form of the old Latin word incarnate. They had to put into a body, the body being the written text. Okay? So what we're doing throughout this semester is reading imaginative literature. That is, everything we read in here, if it's play or work of fiction, never happened. It's not real in that sense. Does that mean it's not true? Does something have to be real, concrete, physical, that you can touch in order for it to be true? That's a question for philosophy. But that's a question that we'll kind of ask. Let me put this another way. Does something have to be physical, material, something we can touch, taste, see, hear, evaluate, measure in a test tube, etc.? Does it have to be that in order to be, and I'm going to go back to a previous word, real? Hamlet never, I should be careful. Let me use a different example. Oedipus, the character Oedipus, never really lived. There's a possibility that there was a real character named Ambleth who lies way, 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 way behind the story of Hamlet. That's why I did shift gears. But Oedipus probably never really lived. Does that make the character of Oedipus and the story of Oedipus less real? So that gets to the philosopher's question of what is real? How do you know what is real? I can't remember her name. An author, early 20th century, dealt with that question in a work of what's called today children's literature. The little work of fiction is called The Velveteen Rabbit. And in The Velveteen Rabbit, this little stuffed animal raises the question, what is real? Because it's dealing with the emotional attachment of its owner with itself, and it's kind of also like, What is love? Can love be measured? I've been wearing this ring for 37 years. In one sense, you could say that's a way of measuring it. Okay? Can it be quantified? Can it be observed? Can it be proven? Greatest way to lose a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever is, yeah, well, if you really love me, what comes next? Prove it. Okay? Important questions. Okay? So, but also kind of dealing with imagination and such. He mentions, your editor mentions, in talking about literature, page 4, one of the most important values of literature is that it nourishes our emotional lives. What the hell is he talking about? How do you nourish your emotional life? How do you nourish your physical life? Eat, right? If you don't eat, you die. So if you don't nourish your emotional life, do you emotionally die? Yeah, you kind of do. But how do you do that? How do you nourish your emotional life? Do you get in touch with yourself? Do you sit there and go, oh, I'm really emotionally down now. I need to, how does reading nourish your, and what is even meant by emotional life? Because that term emotional is so loaded. Usually it's only used in the context of, you're so emotional. What does that mean? Phew, you're like this, man. You're feeling really good and then you're really low, etc. It's not what's meant. So let me give a different example and switch gears a little bit. Make sure it's still up or you're not going to turn. Tell me what you see. Don't tell me it's an iPhone. Tell me what you see.
Sunset, ocean.
Sunset, ocean.
A black screen now.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Wake up, you stupid kid. Why are you not waking up? It's sunrise, actually, but... Okay? So you all see that, right? Well, you're idiots. Stay up. Why can I say you're idiots? Because I don't see an ocean. I don't see a sunrise. Tell me what you see. Something black and oblong, it's got a couple circles on it in a square. Again, you're idiot morons, because I don't see that. What's the point? Perception. Keep going. You're 99.9% correct. Point of view, perception, perspective. Per means through. Spective, how you see. What you see through. 1, 2, had to put them on to see. 3, 4. 4 of you wear these. Why? Might make you look better, Can't see well without them. I mean, I can see all of your faces fine without them. You're just a little fuzzy the farther away you get. I put them on and I'm still a little fuzzy, but better, okay? All of us are wearing these. Figuratively, if not literally. Where do we get them from? Don't say Value Vision, because those of you who aren't wearing them don't get them there. Where do we get our perspectives from? They disappeared. You buy it somewhere? No. How do you get it? You get it with experience, your upbringing, the family you're raised in, or the situation you're raised in, the city you're raised in, the state you're raised in, the country you're raised in, We can extrapolate the hemisphere, the world, the planet, let's assume there's aliens and stuff, all that kind of stuff. Okay? And guess what? Every person in this room is a minority. How can I say that? I'm the youngest of 5 kids. My brother and sisters have no idea what it's like to be the youngest of 5 kids. They were each born like almost, not literally, 1 year apart. It's like 1 year to 19 months or something like that. Just 55, 56, 57, 59. My one sister's breaks the pattern just a little bit. And then here I come like 3.5 years later. Oops. Well, there's a big difference when you've got that big of a break. Between my eldest and my youngest, there's 9 years. Okay? Between my second eldest and my second youngest, there's a gap. Because there's a miscarriage between there. They would have been just about every 2 years otherwise. Okay? Huge difference between youngest and oldest, or my oldest sister would always say, yeah, well, you don't know what it's like to be the oldest, always having to be in charge of blah, 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 blah. Okay? That's perspective, folks. So how do I try to get my oldest sister, 7 years older, to understand what it's like to be the youngest? Can I force it? Can I play a Spock and go up and do a mind meld? No, you can't do that. The best way, the only way you could try is through what I'm doing now. Speech, talking, or writing. I could write, well, I can't because I can't write. I could write a play that portrays something of what it's like to be the youngest in a large family, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So what is that? What would that do? If you think of, like these 4 squares as being my perspective on life, okay, and hers being way over here, hers perspective is that way, and mine's over here. If I were to write something to try to describe that, it would enable her to see like a degree. Think of reality as 360 degrees, a degree differently. Just as, similarly, reading imaginative literature enables us to step outside our narrow frame of vision to see reality from somebody else's perspective, to get it a little bit differently. If you came in early, there were a couple people over here fiddling with the computer, because when I did the class on Monday, like every other minute, it would lose its signal for some reason. All the audio remained, but the video would just kind of clip in and out. I also had them do something to the classroom next door where it recorded everything from like here to the ceiling. So everything below here was clipped off. So I would have to be up against the wall. I didn't know this. Would have to be up against the wall to be in the recording of all. If I took like 4 feet forward, gone. A wonderful example of the importance of perspective, how we see things. So we're going to read in a few weeks. We're going to read a couple of plays by Sophocles, ancient Greek who lived 2,500 years ago. He is usually not so affectionately called among an awful lot of people in our society, a dead white male. What can a dead white male teach a non-dead, non-white, non-male living in 2022? A different perspective. Okay? And even when Sophocles is writing, he has, as a major character, we'll talk about whether or not she is the protagonist. Major character in the second play we're going to read, Antigone, he has as a major character a woman Now, in 5th century BC Athens, women were zip, nada, zilch, nothing. No rights, no say, no power. They were equivalent to blacks in the South in the 1850s. Take that back. According to the Constitution, blacks accounted for 3/5 of a person. Women didn't even get that in ancient Greece. Okay? And she's the protagonist. Maybe. What does she do? She stands up against the full power of the government and says, what you're doing is wrong. This is a nobody, a zero, challenging the authority of the government. The government at that time, actually also happens to be her uncle and cousin. We'll talk about, So imagine an individual standing up against the state. Well, that's a problem we see perennially. We still have it today. No matter what your view of politics, anybody who suffers the full brunt of the state coming down on them because of something that individual's done, without that individual, being up like a mass murderer or a terrorist or something like that. But having the government come after them because the government disagrees, we're in the play Antigone, written in 420 BC. Okay? That, I would argue, the shift of perspective, the seeing more than what we see on our own, that is the value of literature. That is what it enables us to do. Okay? Now we're going to read at least 3, maybe more, just off the top of my head. I think it's 3 works by women. Why not more? Because I'm really used to and familiar teaching the stuff I've been teaching for close to 30 years. That's why it's just simple laziness on my part. But there are also 3 really important, really good American writers. Anne Bradstreet, the first poet, not first poetess, first published poet in America. Okay? Flannery O'Connor and the one in between, Spinster of Amherst. Emily Dickinson, okay, who was really strange, kind of out there, but wrote some really beautiful poetry. 3 very different women, very different periods. Anne Bradstreet, writing during the Puritan period, okay, 17th century. Puritan, shut up. The ones who burned witches at the stake, those Puritans, okay? Emily Dickinson, who was, for all intents and purposes, a shut-in. She died. Her house was just a mess, left with scraps of paper, like these little notes. And on them, poems that she never published in her lifetime. An awful lot of them. And then Flannery O'Connor, a Catholic living in deep South Georgia in the 40s and 50s. Talk about not fitting in. I mean, that's pretty strong. So they give us different perspectives, each one of them. Shakespeare gives us a perspective that we don't have today. All right? Sophocles, as I said, does. All of the writers we're going to read are simply there because they allow us, possibly, to put on another set of lenses. Okay? Another comment about the value of literature, reading imaginative literature. Let me ask a question. How many of you read for fun? Read for pleasure? How many of you like to read? A few, okay? What do you like to read? The few of you kind of very timidly kind of did this. Novels? Anybody? Okay. What kind? Fantasy, science fiction, westerns, romance, detective, real crime,
Jack Reacher books are pretty good.
Jack Reacher books by author just poofed. The older I get, the stronger their Alzheimer's gets. What else? What kind of films do you like? Films are nothing but literature turned into celluloid. Nobody sees movies? Man, you guys are dull. What kind of TV do you watch? Nothing? Okay. That's fine. If you don't like to read, and you don't read at all, you might want to look into a different, 2030, 2020 course that may not be as intensive in the reading. This one's probably not as intensive in some, it's more intensive than others. The 2020 that I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I warned students yesterday, it's the most reading intensive course the English department offers at the sophomore level. Because we read all of the Lord of the Rings and all of the Harry Potter novels. We're talking 5,000 to 6,000 pages. We go through those suckers fast. I already had one student go, I'm going to find another class. Okay, so I was going to ask the question, when you read, why do you read? Now for this class, I know why you're reading. Because I have a captive audience. You have to read in order to get that letter that you want to get on your grade. Okay? Why else do you read? For those who do. Therapy? To learn? How many of you read merely to get information? Notice I put the word merely. That kind of means primarily. You don't read a novel for information. Okay? Because the novel is largely made up and imaginary. Now you can read historical novels that will give you some background history. If you read Shakespeare's what are called his English history plays for information, and then you go take a history exam and a history course on British medieval history, you're probably going to get most of it wrong. Because Shakespeare isn't writing history. He's writing drama. And he takes history and he changes it. Why? To fit his purposes. Doesn't matter if so-and-so was the age of, X's father when in real life he was the same age as X. Doesn't matter at all. Okay? My point is, when you read, what is the purpose of it? Not the purpose of the stuff you're reading. Okay? C.S. Lewis, another author I used to teach a lot of, I don't teach nearly as much of anymore. Author of Language, Chronicles of Narnia, and several other things. Shortly before his death, he wrote a little book called An Experiment in Criticism. And by criticism, all he means by determining the value of literature. What are good and bad books? Okay? And he said, one of the things he argued is that we ought to approach literature one way, when in reality, it's often approached another way. Okay? The way it's usually approached, Lewis suggested, is that you read something to use it. That is, you use the book, you use the poem, you use the play. You try to get something out of it. Like, how can this make me a better person? Self-help. Okay? According to Lewis, who read and wrote a lot of literature, he was a professor at Oxford and then later on Cambridge. According to Lewis, that's the wrong approach. The right approach is to, this is the ocean, right? How many of you have been to the beach? Please, everybody. Okay. Why do you go to the beach? Is it to just get all sandy? No. This is off South Carolina. This is off Charleston. I grew up in California, first 20 years of my life. near Santa Cruz. If we went to the beach, we went to Santa Cruz. The water off Charleston is a lot different than the water off Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz, the water temperature,
Cold.
yeah, it's like 56 to 62 year round. When it's 62, it's warm. It's usually more like 56 to 58. Okay? Water, my wife and I just spent a week in a bed Airbnb in Charleston. The water off Charleston is about 85 this time of year. It's really nice. You don't go spend an hour in the water in Santa Cruz, even in the summer, because after 15, 20 minutes, you'll start to suffer hypothermia. That water will suck the heat right out of your body. You can spend an hour in the water off Charleston, easily. What are you doing when you go in that water? What are you doing when you take a shower after a long, hard day? Maybe you've been working out. Maybe you're an athlete. Maybe you've been working outside. I used to play soccer, ran track, and there was nothing, especially, when we were getting ready for the upcoming soccer season, we would have soccer camp in college. 3 days. First workout, 6 in the morning. Second workout, usually around 1 o'clock. Third workout, 5 to 6 o'clock. 2-hour workouts each for 2 weeks in Chattanooga. I'm from California, man. We have no humidity. Literally no humidity. Came for that first workout and I literally was seeing double when I had to run and do this time 3-mile run on Lookout Mountain. Lots of hills, and I was a runner. And the humidity just about killed me, okay? So you go and you take a shower, why? Well, one reason, you're getting rid of all the sweat and everything. Why else? What does it do? Literally, I'm asking. Not figuratively or metaphorically. What does the water do when you take a shower or a bath? It comes all over you, right? It washes all over you. If it's a good shower. I've lived in England for a while. You might as well have a midget with a squirt gun sitting there doing this, trying to get the water on you. Okay? It covers you. Lewis says that's what you need to let literature do. You let it kind of wash over you. When you take a shower, do you try to stop the water? No, because it feels good. When you read, do you try to stop the author? And I'm going to get in dangerous territory here. All too often today, people do want to stop the author. They want to say, stop! You said something I disagree with. You said something that challenges my belief system. You said something that challenges my sexuality. You said something that blah, 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 blah. Okay? Can you have a conversation like that? How many of you meet up regularly with friends? Please say yes. Otherwise you're dull and you need to get a life, okay? Yes, you do. Why do you do that? Have fun? Talk? Okay? What happens when you talk? Do you automatically get into beat down, drag out arguments where you're at each other's throats? If you do, that's not friendship, folks. That's not, fellowship. That's not conviviality. That's not, unless you really like to argue, that's not fun. Okay? So what do? You sit there and you have give and take. You listen to what they say. You say what you say. And maybe it can involve or get into an argument, but it's not beating each other across the head. When you stop and don't let the author speak, you're beating them across the head. So let the author speak. And I'll give you a little word of advice right now. And this is going to involve something that we're going to get to in the questions for reading and stuff. Everything we read in here, read twice. Just automatically read it twice. The first time, just read it through. Don't sit there and go, oh my God, I don't understand this. What does he mean? Doesn't matter. Just finish it. Just keep reading it through. The second time, stop and try to ask some questions. Okay? The first time, it's like the shower. You're just letting it come. The second time, you're saying, I'm not sure about that. How many of you watch the TV and, if you could, pause it in the middle of something and go, no. How many of you watch sports? Were you always stopping it? That's not how the game plays, right? You're running the ball down the field and you can't just go, stop. This guy's going to tackle me, so stop so I can move over here and get a free. No, it's not how reality works, okay? So, let everything that is being said be said. Then go back and rip it apart. The second time you read it, and by all means, I strongly encourage, your book should look like this by the end of the semester. It should be marked up. You shouldn't be able to sell it back because you should be able to write, effing moron for saying this, etc. Booksellers don't really, care for that as much. All right? So, from that, that's the value. That's the value. Is getting that different perspective, but first, letting the author speak to you. Now, go from there to way too long. Because I was going to say I need to try to leave about 5 minutes early, but I don't know that I will. Go from there to, come on, eyes, work. Writing about fiction, pages 46 to 49. Okay? Now, you're not writing at all in this class, other than the quizzes and exams. That is, you're not writing a paper. So why am I going to ask you now to read this, a couple pages writing about fiction, and then later on writing about drama, and then later on writing about poetry? Not because I'm asking you to write, but because the questions are designed to foster, some critical facility as you read. For example, now, unless you've had some kind of literature course before, a lot of the questions right here, you might, I don't know what he's talking about. Well, that's what we're going to spend the next day or two on. But does the plot conform to a formula? Page 47. You need to know what a plot is, and you need to know what a formula is. But once you know those, does whatever it is we're reading, does it follow like a recipe, a set of instructions? Do this, and this, and you end up with, well, a lot of fiction does. Romance novels are formula fiction. Okay? Detective novels are formula fiction. How do you know that they're formulaic? They involve what? A detective, a crime, a suspect, and resolution. You usually find out who done it. Okay? Notice I didn't call them mystery novels. There are mystery formulaic novels where a mystery has to be solved. In one sense, all the Harry Potter novels are mystery novels. There's a mystery, each one to be solved. Okay? That's an unfortunate use of the word mystery. Why? Because literally speaking, a mystery is something that cannot be solved. That is, a mystery is inexplicable. Here's a theological mystery. Theological, having to do with God. What's called the Incarnation. Christmas. That's a mystery. Explain how, within the Christian tradition, how the God that creates everything that is outside time and space can become an 8-pound, 19-inch long little baby. There's not enough duct tape in the world to keep your head together trying to figure that one out. It's a mystery. The idea of the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. 3 persons, 1 being. It's a mystery. It cannot be rationally explained. Okay? But who killed, the old board game, Clue. Who killed whom with what, where, that can be solved. All right? What's the source and nature of the conflict for the protagonist? Okay, that assumes you understand what the word conflict means and you understand what the word protagonist means. Well, every one of us knows what the word conflict means, even though we may not be able to give it the dictionary definition. Conflict happens when? Or how? Take 2 2-year-olds, put them in a little playpen, and put 1 toy in the middle. 2 go in, 1 come out. That's conflict. Whenever you have 2 people, I've been married 37 years, there's still conflict. Why? Because she doesn't listen to me. That's why. If only she listened to me, we'd have utopia on earth. Being facetious, okay? Protagonist. What's the protagonist? Who's the protagonist in the Harry Potter novels? Harry Potter. Everyone is titled Harry Potter and. The thing that comes after the and is part of what creates the conflict. The Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Prisoner of Azkaban, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Protagonist, however, doesn't mean main character. Protagonist comes from protos agonistes. Protos, which means first or chief. Sufferer. If you're in agonizing pain, what kind of pain is that? Anybody? Come on, it's not rocket science. Is it a little bit of pain? No. Several years ago, stepped out my garage door, early January. We'd had snow and ice. Stepped out my garage door to put something in the trash can. I knew there was snow. I didn't realize there was ice underneath the snow. Drain pipe comes down, water freezes, and I stepped out there like this, and it was like Bugs Bunny on a banana peel. Whoosh! And I broke my fall like this. Totally severed my rotator cuff. That is, every tendon snap. I got up and I was immediately dizzy. Why? Because it hurt like hell. I mean, no pain I can imagine. My wife tells me, yeah, I can imagine it. 4 children. And, got to the emergency room, and they're like, well, we need to check an x-ray. We need you to lift your arm. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. There is no lifting of the arm. You can lift my arm, and I can lift my arm, but I consider it, and it wouldn't move, okay? Pain beyond. That's agonizing. That's what's meant, okay? In fact, an agon was another word that was used in the original Olympics for the wrestlers. Why? Because they didn't have timeouts. They didn't have referees. It was, not quite fight to the death, but pretty bad. So, what's the nature of the conflict for the protagonist? Think Star Wars. Most of you have seen Star Wars. What's the conflict for Luke? Whether you go first film, second film, third film,
He doesn't know who his dad is.
He doesn't know who his daddy is, and he has to find out, all that kind of stuff. Okay? Is the story told chronologically? That is, does it begin at the beginning and end at the end? Well, first part, you could go, well, maybe. But yes, it ends at the end, because when it comes up and says the end, you know it's the end. Think about plot for a moment. Okay? What is plot? We're going to turn page in a couple minutes. Plot is the author's arrangement of incidents in a story. That is, how the author arranges the things that happen in a story. An interesting exercise. What's the plot of your life? You can plot part of your life, right? What part is it really easy now to plot?
What classes are taken?
Okay, what else? Everything up to this point. Right? Because that's called, what else do we call that? History, the past. It doesn't change. Notwithstanding Marvel Universe and going back and, all that kind of nonsense. You can't change yesterday, or a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, or when you registered for this class, or whatever. All of that is fixed. It's happened. Done. So you could write down, I was born. All the way up to right now. What about tomorrow? Next week, next month, next year, the end of your life. Can you plot that out? How many of you have? I'll bet every person in this room has to an extent plotted it out. Because almost all of you have a declared major. That is, you know what you want to do in life. That's plotting, folks. That's both plotting, T-T-I-N-G, and plodding, D-D-I-N-G. You're just kind of slowly moving along towards those. But do you know that that's going to happen? No, none of us do. We sketch out what we think we want out of life, and then what happens? Bad example, but it works. Okay, maybe not an active shooter. You go across the street, bam, you get hit by a car. You're in your car, and some idiot who doesn't know how to drive hits you. It happens, right? All the time. September 11th. Happened to a lot of people. Okay? So, what else? Character. Do you identify with the protagonist? For those of you, I've got something on my glasses. For those of you who have read the Harry Potter novels or any novel, did you identify with the main character? How many of you have a TV show or something that you regularly watch? Or, a work of fiction that you've read before and you kind of are drawn back to it again and again. Or an author that you like, okay? Probably because there's something about a character or the character that you identify with. Now, a lot of people, your age and about 10 years older, really loved the Harry Potter novels when they came out. Why? Because they were 10 years old when they discovered Harry at 10 years old. And they wanted so badly to go off to Hogwarts. Because, let's be honest. Where would you rather go, Hogwarts or MTSU? Dragons, magic, wave a wand, problem disappears. Wave a wand, everything's cleaned up, scourgified. Okay. Wave a wand, there's food. Yeah. Okay. We identify with that. What else? Setting. Is the setting important in shaping your response? What's setting? The time, place, and social milieu in which a story is set. What's the setting for the first, it's same for all the others for the most part, for the first Star Wars film? It's the first thing you see.
A long time ago.
Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Two things. Time, long time ago. Place, not here. Okay?
The Jedi's could exist.
They may be out there. Not here. I don't know if any of you saw, it's totally irrelevant and we don't have time for it, but I like to throw in little bits of news every now and then. Congress recently, in its authorization bill for the intelligence agencies, there's a little, couple of sentences buried. This is a massive, hundreds of pages long, a massive bill. Congress has a comment in there about the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Program, but we used to just call it UFOs, where they stipulate that they want the Pentagon to separate and distinguish between UFOs of known earthly origin, know where I'm going, and alien origin. Alien not meaning Chinese, North Korean, Russian. Alien, extraterrestrial. In other words, the bill itself acknowledges, it asserts that somebody in Congress, whoever wrote that sentence, knows that we know that some of those little things looking around the sky, they're not from around here. It's the first time anywhere in government that quote-unquote truth has been admitted. And I'm not saying that I accept that that's true. I'm just saying this is what was reported yesterday. If you think about that for a moment, that should do what to your head? Yeah, I mean, brains should be splattered everywhere. Because we thought, I still think kind of up until that point, we're it, folks. There's been no proof. And this is like, we know something else. Well, they know something else. We do. Point of view. Who tells the story? Who are the Star Wars films, from whose perspective are those told? Especially the first three. Are they from Princess Leia's? No. Are they from Han Solo's? No. Are they from Yoda's? No. Obi-Wan's? No. Darth Vader's? No. Stormtrooper? No. Who? They're Luke's stories. They're told from his perspective. Even though it might not begin, I, Luke Skywalker of the planet Tatooine, okay? Symbolism. Are there symbols in the story? Any story that has a cross in it, that's symbolic. The first story we're going to read, the minister's black veil. Yeah, the veil is symbolic. Okay? We're going to see the word veil used a number of times in different ways. Okay? So, skip a little bit. Go to, I know we've only got a couple minutes. I wanted to end early, but we're not going to. Page 66. Where you have on the bottom of the page the word plot. I've already talked about it. Page 67. Author's arrangement, incidents of story. Page 67, you've got two phrases, in medias res and flashback. An author can arrange a story chronologically, beginning, middle, end. It can be arranged in medias res, that is, it begins in the middle of things. So you get dropped in the middle, and then the author tells us some background stuff. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings really is in medias res. It begins in the middle of things. How so? It's actually not even in the middle of things. It's more towards the end of things. Because ultimately it's about the history of the ring. And the ring doesn't begin in The Lord of the Rings. It begins literally thousands of years previously. Which is why Tolkien gives us two very important chapters that are all background. When films do this, they do it better, I would say, than fiction does, literary fiction. They'll do the background stuff via flashback. We'll get a perspective of what somebody has seen or experienced earlier, okay? Which is what the thing's talking about. Bottom of 67, character. What's a character? I know this seems really stupid to talk about, but it's an imagined person in the story. I say it seems really stupid. Jedis. Real? No, not real. But there are societies around the world of people who call themselves Jedi. Similarly, there are people, they need to get a life. There are people around the world who play Quidditch. supposedly a game played on brooms where you fly. MTSU has a Quidditch team. They don't fly. They run around with brooms stuck between their legs. Get a life, folks. Sorry, if you are on the MTSU Quidditch team, I mean, really, get a life. Turn a couple more pages. I know we're running out of time. Page 72. Hold on, do I skip something? 72. I think in my previous class I really skipped a bunch. Now we'll stop here. So, what today's today? Today's Wednesday. For Friday, we'll finish this stuff, but also read through Hawthorne's Minister's Black Veil. It's only about 7 or 8 pages long. It's short, right? Don't ask questions. Just read it. I just want it in your mind because I might use it as some example material to talk about. If you came in after I took roll, come see me because I just want to put faces to names. Today doesn't count or anything like that. Your name's not on here? Okay, and give me your last name. M-I-L-E-N-O. Okay, first name? P-A-M? Okay. I'll print out a new roll. So you'll be on.
I wanna take pictures because I got this one. It's like it's not the one that
Yeah, was this in the bookstore?
yes, they give this.
For this class?
I wanna take pictures.
What I would say is download the syllabus from D2L. Do you know how to do that?
Yes.
Okay, so get on D2L and look at the syllabus and just see if everything that's on the syllabus is in here. Because if it is, you can. It's not.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was looking today. It's not.
Yeah, you ought to be able to take it back and get your full money back because it's not the one that was ordered
Yeah.
for this class. This,
So I wanna just take picture
what you really want to take a picture of that is that.
Okay. Right, thank you.
Yep. Hey.
It should be Gabriel Valencia.
Yep, gotcha.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
See you.
See you.